So whenever anyone asks me who my favourite band of all time are, the answer is always Iron Maiden. Now Maiden are the band that pretty much got me into music. Even though I was brought up around classic rock and blues and I had a real kind of steady diet of that as I was growing up, when I discovered Iron Maiden, that really transformed everything for me, because at that point I shifted from someone who just kind of appreciated rock music to someone who loved it. And at that point I knew I had to be a guitar player and everything else that comes with it. I was obsessed with them from a really young age, and to this day they're still my all-time favourite band. In this video, I'm going to show you 10 of my favourite Iron Maiden riffs. Now, it was quite hard for me to pick just 10, to be honest with you, because being a very long-time fan of the band, I pretty much love all their riffs. So to whittle it down to 10 of my favourites was quite a big challenge. When I started playing guitar, they were instantly a huge influence on my playing and my guitar journey, especially Adrian Smith. Now, whenever I've been asked about my favourite guitar players, Adrian always comes up top of that list, because he is probably the guitar player that I've borrowed and stolen the most ideas from, because it was always his playing in the band that I gravitated towards the most. I always felt compelled by what he did. I loved his approach, that it's slightly bluesy, but it's quite technical and quite precise as well. That just really kind of spoke to me. I always thought that he was my personal standout guitar player in that band. As much as I love all the guitar players in that band, Adrian's playing was the thing that really caught my attention when I was younger, and to this day I still regard him as probably my favourite guitar player of all time. So before I show you guys my top 10 Iron Maiden riffs, just want to let you guys know this is a sponsored video today. So the guys at Walrus Audio and Face Distribution are very kindly sponsoring this video today. But as always, all the thoughts and opinions in the video are my own. So gear-wise, I'm using a pretty simple setup for this. Now obviously it's an Iron Maiden video, so I'm using my Jackson Adrian Smith guitar, because it wouldn't really be an Iron Maiden video unless I used this guitar. This guitar is plugged into, you can't really see it because it's right behind me there, but it's the Blackstar HT20 Mark II. I've got that running clean, kind of on the edge of breakup, with a British tone, so a lot of mid, and the ISF is over on the British side. That is running via the 2-Notes Torpedo Captor X. Now I've got the amp running completely clean, which sounds like this. So it's quite a clean tone, but it does slightly start to break up when you really dig in. And then on top of that clean tone, I'm using 3 pedals from the Walrus Audio Fundamental range. So you're going to see those right now on the desk in front of me. I'm using the Fundamental Drive, the Fundamental Chorus, and the Fundamental Reverb. So the Fundamental series is Walrus Audio's more affordable pedal line that they've just launched. Walrus have been around for a while, and some of the pedals do creep up in the cost bracket, but they're fantastic units. The Fundamental range are all priced at around £99 to about £130 in the UK, so they're much more affordable than some of their higher grade counterparts. Now the whole point with the Fundamental series, as you can see, is they have this uniform look about them. So each pedal has a core function, which is, drive, chorus and reverb that I'm using here. There's also a tremolo, a phaser, a fuzz, a distortion, and a delay as well. Now each of the pedals are all built the same. So each one has 3 sliders, and then where we need multiple modes, we have a 3-position switch. So the drive, for instance, has a gain, tone, and volume control on slider, and then a switch here for smooth, crunch, and bright. Of course, the same way we have 3 different options. Here we have rate, depth, and mix, and then light, medium, or heavy chorusing. And then on the reverb, we have decay, tone, and mix, with a 3-position toggle there for hall, spring, and plate. So for this video, I'm using these 3 pedals for all the sounds you're hearing. So the settings you can see are the settings that I'm using for the video. So the drive is on the crunch mode. You can see there's a slight boost there for the gain and the tone. The chorus is on light mode. The mix is pretty much in the middle with a lower depth and a very slow speed. And then the reverb, I'm using a hall reverb, a low mix, the tone is in the middle, and the decay is in the middle as well. So each of these pedals is going to be stacked on top of the clean tone you've already heard, which once again is this. So I'm using the drive to add my drive tone. Now there's a slight bit of ambience there. The amp is running dry. There's no reverb on the amp, but the ambience that you're already hearing is coming from the 2-note Torpedo Captor X, so it's just the room sound that's on the cab. But I'm also adding additional reverb with the fundamental reverb. And then, for some of the more 80s riffs, I'm using the chorus as well, because there was a period in the 80s where Maiden used some quite processed guitar sounds. So those are the fundamental tones that you're going to be hearing in this video. It's going to be the fundamental drive for all my drive. The reverb is going to be on all the time as well, and then you're going to be hearing the chorus on and off when I'm using some chorus in a riff. Alright, so now we're going to talk about my top 10 favourite Iron Maiden riffs. So we're going to start straight at the top with number 1 with my all-time favourite Maiden riff, and this is from the track Stranger in a Strange Land. So for this one, I'm using the drive with the chorus switched on. The reverb is on for everything as well. But the chorus is used in this one because at this time of the band's career, this was on the Somewhere in Time album. And at this point, the band were using some Galley and Kruger amps in the studio, which had some chorus built into them. Now, the whole kind of vibe of that album is very futuristic, and the guitar sounds kind of verge on synthy at times, and they use a lot of chorus on that album as well. So it kind of puts the standard 80s rock tone into this slightly more spacey, futuristic kind of vibe. So it's a great tone, and I love this riff. I am using the chorus for this to kind of pull the overdriven tone into that album. The second riff is from the track 2 Minutes to Midnight. This was one of the first Maiden songs I ever heard, and I just loved this riff straight away because, number one, it's an Adrian Smith riff, but also I just loved the kind of the driving aggression that this riff has. It's a bunch of pedaled open strings with some double stops, and I just love the vibe of this riff. This one, I don't need the chorus for, so I'm going to switch that off. This is just the drive and the reverb. So the third riff I want to talk about is the intro riff from the song The Wicker Man. Now, in terms of the Maiden catalogue, this is relatively newer, even though this came out in the year 2000. Most people would kind of consider this to be a newer era of the band, so obviously this is a newer riff in the grand scheme of things. This riff I love because I still remember the first time I heard this riff, which was on the live show for Rock in Rio. I borrowed the VHS cassette, or the VHS tape I should say, off a friend in school, so that shows how long ago I'm talking. We're talking VHS here. Some of the people watching this video might not even know what a VHS is, but I borrowed the VHS of that show, and that was the opening track. So again, being young and not fully having dived into the band's catalogue, hearing that as the opening track and seeing the scale of the show, that had a really big impact on me. So this riff has always been one that I've loved. The fourth riff is the intro riff from the song Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Now that song in itself is an absolute riff fest. It's 13.5 minutes long. When I was young and I was kind of starting to really find my place as a guitar player, and I spent countless hours learning Maiden songs, one of my big goals was to learn how to play that song in full, and I did. And I just always loved that, you know, a song could be 13 minutes long but have so many segments to it and so many cool bits. I love the intro riff for this. It's a great classic 80s Maiden riff, and it's just such a fun riff to play. I love the way that it alternates between single notes and that kind of pulsating gallop that goes underneath the riff. Riff number 5 is a little different from the usual kind of Iron Maiden heavy metal riff. This is more of like a hard rock riff, and the riff is the chorus riff from the track Children of the Damned. This is very early in the band's career. This is only on their third album, the Number of the Beast album, and this, I just always loved this riff. It's simple, it's just power chords with a real simple kind of single note walking line that goes on, but I think it was just the simplicity of the riff with the really great chorus hook that I just really got obsessed with when I was younger. This was one of those songs that when I first started playing guitar, I loved because I could play it, and it wasn't a song that was too physically demanding on someone who just started playing guitar. So even though it's not a hard riff to play, I've always loved this riff. Riff number 6 is kind of two riffs, I guess. This is the verse, and I guess we could call it the pre-chorus riff from the track Moonchild, which is the first track off the Seventh Son of a Seventh Son album. Now, I love this riff because it is a really simple power chord riff with a gallop underneath it. But I really love the way the riff shifts from the gallop to the same chord progression, but we're adding an open high E and B string picked. It kind of completely changes the feel of the riff, even though the fundamental chord progression underneath is the same. This again is just one of those songs that from the first listen I loved. I loved that late 80s era of the band where they were sort of just moving into, I don't want to say progressive territories, but they kind of were, but they were in, kind of incorporating more synths and alternate kind of tones into their range, and that to me I love, because being a big fan of the 80s, those albums to me kind of sum up the 80s sound. So the Somewhere in Time album and the Seventh Son album have always had a very special place in my heart. So the seventh riff I want to talk about is the opening riff from the track Different World. Now, I got into Iron Maiden probably around about 2001, I guess. I was still in school. I was maybe about 13, 14 years old at that point. And I kind of got into them through the newer material they had out at that point. And then I went on the kind of path of backtracking through the discography. So all the material that they released while I was still getting into the band at a young age, I've always loved, even though I know a lot of the older fans don't like a lot of that material. For me, that was kind of my introduction to the band, so I've always loved that stuff. Now, the first couple of times that I got to see the band live, obviously I'm still in school or just finished school, very, very excited by seeing my idols live. The song Different World was the opening track on the A Matter of Life or Death album, and that was the second tour that I ever saw them on. So just seeing that kind of opening the massive rock show that literally blew my 16-year-old mind. I mean, how can I not love that riff? I still love that riff today, even though I know a lot of older Maiden fans don't, but I do, so it's on my list. It's number 7. Number 8, we're going to go right back to the Number of the Beast album again for the verse riff from The Prisoner. Now, I really struggled to pick a riff from this song because The Prisoner, again, is another song that I love. I love all the riffs in the song, but when I think of riffs that really get me excited, the verse riff for this is one of those riffs. Now, it's quite a tricky riff to play because you're not doing anything too crazy with your fretting hand, but the pick attack is very intense. It's a very fast riff, so there's a lot of stamina needed, and it just sounds great. I love the track, and it's always been one of those riffs that just gets me very, very excited whenever I play it or whenever I hear it. Riff number 9, we're going straight back to the late 80s now to my favourite album, Somewhere in Time, for the opening harmony section. I don't really want to call this one a riff because it's kind of a lead guitar section, but it's the introduction part for the track Caught Somewhere in Time. Now, I've always said that that album is my favourite one of all time for many, many reasons, but that riff, or that kind of harmony section, when I first heard that album, I loved the way that it kind of came in with this really nice melody that built up into the song. Now, they actually opened with that track on their most recent tour, and even now, being 35 years old, when I heard that harmony kick in, I got the same level of excitement that I did when I first heard that track when I was like 16 years old. So even 20 years on, that riff still gets me every time. This one is quite a long one because I love the entire section that builds up. So you've got the slow intro with the harmonies, then that builds up into the faster harmony, then that goes into the verse. So I've kind of included everything up to the verse in this one just because I love that whole starting point of the song. And the 10th one I want to talk about is the intro riff from the track Where Eagles Dare. Now, when I started backtracking through the discography, the two albums outside of Somewhere in Time that really stood out to me was Power Slave and then the one that preceded that, Peace of Mind. I loved the intro riff for Where Eagles Dare because you've got that big drum intro and then that really fast, quite heavy riff. And what I really liked was it's actually in 12/8. So it's quite an unusual riff because you don't often think of 12/8 as being a heavy metal time signature. That to me is a blues shuffle. So to have a riff like Where Eagles Dare in 12/8 is quite interesting because it's very unusual to sort of situate that time signature in this sound. It doesn't sound like a blues shuffle. It sounds very much like a classic Maiden riff, but this is just such a fun riff. And again, kind of like the riff from The Prisoner, there's a lot of stamina needed in this one. It's quite a tricky riff to play. And when I was younger and I was learning this riff, I loved the challenge that presented me. So I had a lot of fun learning this one. And yeah, it was always a riff that I just loved. I think it's a great way to kind of kick the album off because you've got that big drum fill, huge riff, great song. So yeah, riff number 10 is Where Eagles Dare. So there you go, there are my top 10 favourite Iron Maiden riffs. Now, as I said, I love the band, they're my favourite band of all time, and I really struggled to come up with just the top 10. This could have probably easily been a top 50 because there's so much material in their catalogue that I love. Let me know down below in the comments what your favourite Iron Maiden riffs are. I'd love to hear which riffs by them you guys get really excited by, and if there's any cool stories associated with those, like some of the stories I've shared, I'd love to hear those as well. And while you're down there letting me know what your favourite Maiden riffs are, don't forget to hit that like button, and if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button as well. Thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I'll see you soon.